Hello there. Good afternoon. My name is Annette Cespedes, and today I'm going to talk about sentence semantics. This is a task that was assigned by my professor Edwin Angola. He belongs to the Linguistics Language Department here in La Paz, Bolivia. So let's start. Now, in this chapter, we have to consider the semantic relationships holding between the verb and the nominal elements that are inside a sentence. We can analyze the semantic cores, contents of a sentence like prepositions, nominal arguments, and predicates. Then we can consider the semantic functions that arguments can serve. Roles such as agent or source, goal, and so on. Before we continue, it's important to remember the following. We will consider that the semantic relationships holding between nouns and verbs that are inside a sentence. We will follow the approach of many linguists, and these linguists believe that it is possible to treat syntax as autonomous, or syntax and semantics are essentially separate, with semantics pure interpretative. Now, before we keep going, let's see some examples of prepositions. As you can see here in my screen, I have, did Harriet call the doctor? Another way to say it could be, will Harriet call the doctor? Harriet called the doctor. Another way to say it, it's for Harriet to call the doctor. Harriet's calling the doctor. Another way to say it, it was Harriet who called the doctor. It was the doctor whom Harriet called. The one who called the doctor was Harriet. Let's keep going. Now, a preposition is divided into a predicate and its argument. What is an argument? An argument is any of the various elements of the sentence that are set in relation to another by the predicate, typically noun phrases. What is the main function of the predicate? The predicate is the operation carried out on an argument or arguments, and it places the argument in relation to another one. Now, predicates are typically verbs, prepositions, and adjectives. Now, let's see that there are different types of valencies. 0 place, 1 place, 2 place, and so on. So let's see each one of them. 0 place predicates consist of a class of impersonal constructions called whether expressions, in which the subject is a dummy, which does not refer, right? It's just whether expressions. Let's see the 0 place examples. It is sunny, it is hot, it is snowing, it felt chilly, it is warm, right? So just whether expressions. The 1 place predicates consist of what are traditionally known as intransitive verbs like born, choke. Intransitive phrasal verbs like fly away, run out. Another ones that are called some copula plus subject complements. Be Irish, be depressed, be a dancer, become a lawyer, become a doctor, be a singer, be sad, be happy, and so on. So let's see some one-place predicates examples. The house is burning. Frank is Irish. His time ran out. There are two answers. Janet became a lawyer. The bird flew away. The child talked. Sam is depressed. Violet is a dancer. As you can see in the example, we use intransitive verbs. We use phrasal verbs, right? And we also use subject complements. Let's keep going. Now, let's talk about the two-place predicate that basically consist of transitive verbs, like break, Sam, surprise, left, right. Transitive phrasal verbs, write down, press flat. Prepositional verbs like belong to, look into, start at. And as well as adjectival structure would be similar to behind, be behind, and be upset with. Let's check the examples. Mary broke the glasses. The book belongs to Peter. Diana left the gym. Gary brought the paper. Frank is similar to John. The contest started at noon. He brought the addresses down. Alice is my aunt. The carpenter scented the desk. The news surprised us. The teacher is upset with him. Violet is the little ballerina. The coat is behind the door. He pressed the papers flat and the witch looked into the cauldron. Now let's see the three-place predicates. This one includes the transitive, complex transitive, and the prepositional verbs. Let's see the following examples. The police officer gave a ticket to the speeder. Mary put the kids on the table. We donate the clothes to charity. The baby crawled from the chair to the sofa. Santa Cruz is between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And the road extends from coast to coast. As you can see here in the examples, we used the transitive verbs, complex transitive, and so on. Now, the fourth place, we have just one example here. He flew from New York to Havana via Miami. Now, let's talk about the thematic rows. The concept of thematic rows is a means of counting for the functions or arguments in respect to the predicate. Thematic rows are the grammatical relevant semantic relationships between predicates and arguments. This approach, the one that I already mentioned, was first proposed by Charles Fillmore, and at the beginning was originally known as a case grammar. As a case of grammar. Now, Let's keep going. In case you don't know Charles Fillmore, I have a picture here about, I have a picture about him. And I also have some quotes, very interesting quotes that he wrote. Words are also seeds, and when dropped into the invisible spiritual substance, they grow and bring forth after their kind. Another quote that I have from here is that from him is that we must learn to let go, to give up, to make room for the things we have prayed for and desire. He has really nice quotes. Now let's keep going. Going back to this, to define the roles of arguments, Fillmore borrows the notion of case from traditional grammar, but uses the term in a slightly different way. Traditionally, nouns may be inflected for case, for nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and so on. Fillmore basically conceives of these semantic cases as finitive in number and universal, not language specific, much like semantic pictures. Now, let's see the list of some of the possible thematic roles served by arguments in a sentence. The first one is agent. It is also called actor, which is basically the animate initiator, causer, the one that causes the action. This one is who acts by will and takes responsibility for the action. The second one is force, also called author. It's the inanimate cause of an action, which does not act by will or volition. So there is a huge difference between agent and force. The instrument is also called means. The means by which an event is caused, or the tool, generally inanimate, used to carry out an action. An instrument that doesn't act but is acts happen, right? Like agent, force, and instrument together could be considered cause. Now, let's talk about the experiencer. It is also called dative or affected. The animated being affected inwardly by a state or action. The source. It's the place from which a person, it's the place from which or person from whom an action emanates. The other one is the goal, also called recipient. It is the place to which or person to whom an action is directed, including indirect objects and the relational adverbs. The path. The path taken in moving from one place to another in the course of an action. Now, the location, it is also called place. The place at, in which, or the time at which an action occurs, also temporal. Now, the possessor. The possessor of a thing, really a special kind of locative. Since the thing and the possessor must coincide, there are two kinds of possessions, depending on whether the possessor and the thing possessed are inherently connected, right? Now, let's talk about the benefactive. The benefactive is the person or thing for which an action is performed, or the person who derives something from the action of another. What is factitive? Also, I prefer to call it result or effective, which is the object resulting from an action or state, having no prior existence, but coming about by virtue of the action or state. Then comes the patient, which is also called affected objective or thing, which is basically the person or thing affected by an action or the entity undergoing a change. Now, what is the theme? The theme is the person or thing which undergoes an action, or that which is transferred or moved by an event, but otherwise unchanged. Neutral, also called theme. We have to be careful in this part. Neutral. I prefer to call it neutral so we don't get confused. It's the person or thing which is not changed or even acted upon, but simply presents an action. Then we have the range, also extent, which is the specification or limitation of an action. And finally, we have the role, which is a person playing a role or part in an action or state. Let's see here one example. Let's see the difference between patient, thing, neutral, and factitive. Like I told you, just 1 second. Jane broke the vase. Patient. Jane moved the vase. Theme. Jane saw the vase. Neutral. And Jane made the vase. Factitive. Let's see the explanation here. A patient is changed in some way by the action. Jane broke the vase. While theme is affected by the action. John moved the vase. Often by changing location, but is itself unchanged. A neutral is present at the event, but does not undergo an action. And factitive comes about by virtue of the action itself. Yeah, because it says Jane made a vase. Now, in the following chapter, we are going to see the expressions of thematic role in English, the dual thematic roles, and the thematic grids. Thank you very much for your attention.